Hi, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review. Let's talk about 2024's The Shrouds. This is the latest film from David Cronenberg, and I am a huge fan. Early in my life, I saw things like Scanners and Videodrome and The Fly and Dead Ringers, and all those had a very indelible mark upon my psyche. I like all of his movies pretty much. Not all of them hit me like some of those I just mentioned or some of the newer ones. For example, I recently reviewed last year Crimes of the Future. It got a nice 4K release, and I thought the movie was very, very good, but it also left me a little cold, as some of his later movies do. But even stuff like Naked Lunch, I think David Cronenberg is one of our finest directors. It just doesn't always connect with everybody. And, well, there's enough movies out there that you don't have to like every one, right? But I tend to like what he does, even though it tends to be on the darker and sometimes more depressing side of things. So his wife of 43 years passed away in 2017, and this is what came out of it. It was going to be a TV series on Netflix, and after writing 2 of the episodes, Netflix canceled it, and he decided to make it a movie. Very personal, very autobiographical, but he says in the extras on the Blu-ray that I just got that when you say something's autobiographical, it just really starts that way. Once you start writing the characters, they take different forms. They do different things. They say different things. They pull different things out of you as you write the characters. So it becomes less and less autobiographical. And he was mentioning that not just with this movie, but with The Brood, one of his early movies, because he made that movie right after a very horrible divorce and poured that kind of into that. And that's why you got that. Well, his wife died of cancer after 43 years of being together. And this movie is pretty much a reflection of that. So much so that our lead actor, they've even dressed him up like David Cronenberg. The Shrouds is a sci-fi horror film. I don't know what else to call it, a drama, about a man who, we start the movie with him looking in a hole at a decaying body, and he screams. We back out of the hole, and he's in a dentist chair, and he fell asleep in the dentist chair, and he wakes up, and the dentist says, "Your grief is rotting your teeth." This was the phrase that David Cronenberg came up with, that the whole movie and the whole TV series, I guess he was going to write, is kind of based on. The movie is an examination of death, grief, what we do to get on with our lives, and a whole lot more. I don't want to talk too much about it because a lot of people, it didn't even get a theatrical release in the United States. It was released at Cannes in May of 2024. It was released in Canada and overseas in April of this year. It's now out from the Criterion Collection. They have brought out their Criterion Premieres line, which is movies that in association with the Criterion Channel, they're helping get releases into theaters and stuff. So it's not a quote-unquote official Criterion collection. It's a Criterion Premieres, but it's very much in the Criterion vein. And I'll go ahead and say this Blu-ray from Criterion is one of the best Blu-rays I have ever seen. Like, the picture is crystal clear. This was shot digitally. I'm watching it last night. I checked like the bit rate. It's running at like 35 kbps. That's pretty big for a Blu-ray. That's almost into 4K territory. There's one extra on there, about a 19-minute interview with David Cronenberg. There's also the trailer. And that's it. There's really nothing else on there. They say there's a booklet in it, but it's really a pamphlet. It's 2 pages. It's interesting, but it's not exactly a booklet. But overall, the release for under $20 is fantastic. Both the video and the sound quality. I really thought I was almost watching a 4K. It's really spectacular. And to not give away a spoiler, I have pre-ordered a European 4K that will be here in about a month, and I'm going to rewatch the movie and compare the two. So stay tuned for that. But this is a movie that stuck with me since I finished it last night. When the movie was over, I thought the ending was a little weak. I didn't tell you more about the movie. So the guy at the beginning who is at the dentist, 4 years ago, his wife died, and he's created this cemetery where you can view the bodies decaying. They put the bodies in these shrouds. They're a thing of technology, basically. They look like just burial shrouds, but they're very technical. And with that technology, you can view the body as it decays over the years. You get a full 3D video picture that you can walk up to the grave site, punch in your code on the app on the phone, and bring up. You're the only one that can do that. And where the crisis comes in the movie after the first few minutes, and they've introduced us to this world, and he's built a nice restaurant at this. This is kind of the theme of what's going to be more. He wants to do more of these around the world because people actually want to see. And he makes a good case, actually, for wanting to see it still have a connection with that person who's passed away. Well, within the first act of the movie, not only is the cemetery defaced, it's also hacked. That's kind of a big deal. People pay a lot of money to be able to view their loved ones, and they can't. And it starts getting weird from there. I mean, this is a David Cronenberg movie after all. Vincent Kessel stars in it. I just watched him in Brotherhood of the Wolf. He's one of my favorite actors. I think he's fabulous, and he's really great in this. They've made him look like David Cronenberg. He's got a similar hairstyle and dresses similarly, and I think that's a very interesting autobiographical bit of the film, that it almost looks like David Cronenberg walking through this film. Vincent is an amazing actor, and he does a great job. Diane Kruger is also in this film. Fantastic in the film. There's a couple other people. Guy Pearce, I almost didn't recognize him. He's such an erotic, interesting character in this. And Sandrine Holt, who is also in this film. Fantastic. These are the four main characters that kind of pretty much carry the entire film. And Diane Kruger is playing multiple characters in the film. She plays the sister who died, the identical sister, and a computer program voice. That I won't get into spoilers. Her ex-husband is Guy Pearce. He's a computer programmer. There's a conspiracy going on. They want to do these type of cemeteries around the world, but there's people who obviously don't want this as well. And so you get into it. It's not really about all that, even though that's the driving force of the movie. That really is about him coming to terms with loss and death, and how different people react to this, and how different people want to implement this. And it's a 2-hour movie that's mostly conversations, but I find that once David Cronenberg got to movies like Dead Ringers, they've just become immaculate from like a blocking perspective, a cinematography perspective with the music and everything. A lot of it's very still sometimes. The camera doesn't move a whole lot. But the shots are just like every shot could be a picture. They're just blocked so well, framed so well. It brings you into the action and the conversation. And unlike Crimes of the Future and some of his more recent films, this one, the conversation really drove me. I was very interested. You know those movies, you put it on and about 15 minutes in, you kind of sit back and you might check your phone and eat some popcorn. And then there's other movies you put on about 15 minutes in, you start leaning in. Well, I was leaning into this one more and more. And it's not like anything ever action-packed happens with it. It's mostly conversations and conversations about technology and how that's going to affect our lives and death and remembering people and all that. And I had 2 movies I was going to watch last night. Both just came in the mail. I was going to watch this or an extreme French horror film. And I knew either one was probably going to be a downer of an experience, but it actually wasn't. I mean, of a David Cronenberg film, this almost has a quote unquote happy ending, almost. It does have kind of a sunny perspective at the end, if you look at it that way. Again, I don't want to get into any spoilers with these kind of things because I found it to be one of David Cronenberg's best movies, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it in 4K. So if this sounds like your cup of tea and you want to explore some darker things, I would check this out, maybe on a streaming service, or go ahead and pick up the Blu-ray. It's available domestically. The 4K won't be out for, I think, beginning of December. I'll let you know more about that when it comes in, because I really do want to this movie looked incredible, so I can't even imagine what it'll look like in 4K with HDR applied. Like I said, The Extra is a 20-minute conversation with David Cronenberg. Anytime you get to hear him speak, it's amazing how clear he is at his age. He's pretty old now. And he was fantastic in the interview. Just he's on it. He remembers things. He's smart. He's sharp. I've always found him to be pretty much an intellectual in the movie space. For a guy who started with squirmy body horror movies, he's grown into one of our finest directors. Again, not all of his movies hit me like this one, but this one really did. And this is going to be one of my favorites, probably of the year. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's kind of dark. It's kind of depressing for most of the time. We're talking about death and grave sites and viewing bodies as they decay. But the conspiracy theory part of it and the acting and everything is just a cut above. I just, when it was over, I was like, that was a great movie. From top to bottom, it was just well made, and I was entertained. Not everybody will be, but if you like David Cronenberg, if the idea of this movie sounds good to you, then check out The Shrouds. It's his latest, and it's actually really darn good. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. More podcasts are on the way. Please like, share, and subscribe, and have a spectacular day.